Before we get stuck into the episode, a little plea from me, if I may. I know that we have some awesome and loyal listeners of the show. I can see it in the stats. I can see that there are listeners all over the world in the most magical places I've not been to that I would love to visit. And we really, truly have a fantastic global audience for Beyond the Bio. So thank you so much for listening to the show. So my plea is for you to please hit that subscribe button, to like and rate the show, whichever platform you're on. I can see from our stats that we have the most listeners on Spotify, which is super easy to just hit the bell and also to rate the show. If you are listening on Apple, then if you could follow the show, if you could rate the show, and even leave a little review if you are getting value from the show, because Apple is the platform that allows you to leave a review. It would mean so much to me. I know this is something that all podcasters are asking for, but it really does make a difference and it would mean a lot to me. So thank you in advance. On with the show. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bio. This week I'm joined by Robin Waite. Robin is the founder of Fearless Business, a regular speaker at various business events and best-selling author of several books including Online Business Startup, Marketing Machine and his most recent popular release, Take Your Shot. Robin puts his 2 decades of experience to work providing business coaching to coaches, consultants and freelancers worldwide, helping them to productise their service, articulate their value and confidently charge more. I really wanted to get Robin on the show to talk to us about how he got so many reviews for his books. He has over 1,200 book reviews. That is a serious amount. And I know how hard it is to get those book reviews in. So I wanted to find out how he did it, what his strategy was, and how it feels to get some 1-star reviews in amongst those amazing reviews. So let's get stuck in. Hello, Robin. It is great to have you on Beyond the Bio talking all things book reviews. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sophie. I can't wait to nerd out over books. It's like a secret passion of mine, which I rarely get to talk about, so it's a pleasure.
Oh, brilliant. Bring it on then. And you have a few books. So just to give us a little bit of context, tell us about the books that you have out in the world at the moment.
Yeah, so I've got several books, but probably my 2, air quotes here, proper books, I would call them. The first one was Online Business Startup, which I wrote about 10 years ago. So kind of like Ron Seal, it does what it says on the tin. If somebody's thinking about starting a business, they want to take it online and then market it. That's what that book is about. And it also includes a few chapters in there about what, despite the fact I wrote it 10 years ago, there was stuff when I first started my business 10 years before that I wish somebody had told me as well. So it goes quite into a lot of sort of detail about that startup process. More recently, though, I wrote my second book called Take Your Shot. So I'm a coach, just for context. I switched careers back in 2016 from running a web design business into starting up mentoring and coaching other business owners. I kind of fell into it as a happy accident, but one of my first clients ended up randomly being this golf professional named Russ. And I kept on telling the story about my coaching journey with Russ to other clients because he was going places. It was a really great story. So in the end, I just thought, well, sod it, I'll just write it into a book. So that's where Take Your Shot came from. And I've got a couple of others as well. I've got, more recently, I've just overhauled Marketing Machine, which again is just my take on sort of marketing and sort of the current era of the online space. And the other 2 are kind of, I'd say, fairly insignificant, which I've got, which are just kind of lead magnets really more than anything.
Great. So quite the suite of book options there. And I know that you've self-published your last few books. What made you choose to move from a hybrid publisher to publish them yourself?
Well, it was an interesting journey, actually. So I would actually kind of encourage anybody who's publishing for the first time to go down the hybrid route for their first book, at least, because there are so many, as you know, there's so many nuances around publishing in general. So even from the title of the book, the blurb on the back, the cover, design, what that looks like, the typesetting, the copyright. So there's all of these things, really technical things, which actually go into creating a book. So one of the challenges with this, though, and anybody sort of in the hybrid space will understand this, you lose a certain element of control. So down to things like, first of all, you lose some money. So you typically split your royalties between you and the hybrid publisher, and that can vary between sort of 50-50 or up to 80/20, or some are even a little bit more generous than that. So that was the first thing. And what that means is that when I wanted to print copies of Online Business Startup, because a majority of my marketing strategy is about giving books away. You know, a mutual contact, Dan Priestley, says, you know, tile the floors, ceiling and walls with your books, like just give them away. That's like your expertise and your value. And when you're spending £6 a book plus £2, £3, £4 of postage, and in the early days of my coaching practice, when I wasn't making quite so much money, you know, that was quite a significant sort of impact financially. So I had a go. I thought, well, the only way I can get a little bit more control back over this is to self-publish. So I took it under my own wing. And I've got some design sort of background, you know, with what I used to do in my former career, you know, in the agency days. So using things like InDesign and tools like that, it kind of was relatively second nature to me. So I pulled the book together. I took it under my own steam I did the cover design. I did the typesetting myself. And what was interesting is since, and this is why I would recommend working with a publisher, a very good friend of mine, one of the school dads, is very pedantic about the English language, and he took a red pen to take your shot. And there was the first part, which was like, dagger to the heart, like, how dare you? And then I was like, actually, it made it so much better, like having somebody critique it and, you know, go through just typos and grammatical errors and things like that. Naively, there was a couple of swear words which I put in there, and actually professionally, I think they needed to be washed out. So I didn't think it mattered, but it does make a difference. Little things like that, basically. I also then, probably about 3 years ago, worked with a graphic designer to help just give the cover an update as well. And that gave me a lot more confidence in, when I was putting the book out there, that it was a really quality product. And I think that's what you lack as a self-publisher. I don't think a lot of people would probably care so much about that element of design and quality at the end of it. Sometimes people are just like, I just want to get a book out. But for me, with my design background, there were little bits where I'd look at it and go, just not quite happy with that. And it doesn't sit right when you're giving away and selling so many copies of it. You want it to be, you know, reflect a personal, you know, professional brand.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I guess having now had the opportunity to self-publish, you've probably got better access to the back end of things and seeing the split of sales. Talk to me a bit about the split of sales between paperback, Kindle and audiobook versions.
Yeah, so I was sharing with you. So obviously I've got various sort of royalty splits with the first book, and then obviously I own all of the rights to the second book. But currently the Audible royalties I get are greater than the ones I get from KDP and from my publisher. So I make more money for my audiobook than I do the Kindle and paperback combined, which I was quite surprised at. I thought people like to pick up stuff and hold it and it be tangible. But I think it's just the modern era. People listen to audiobooks whilst they're out walking the dog, driving the car, on the tube and things like that more so.
It's so interesting. I've had a couple of people on the show lately who've been saying the same thing to me, and I think that's kind of what's pushed me over the edge to record an audiobook version for my next book. And I think it's being aware of what those trends are, isn't it? So I love podcasts, but for some reason I can't get my head in the game with audiobooks. And I think it's because when I read, I either read a business book, which is for pleasure, but it's business, and I like a paper copy so I can write on it. And if I'm reading for fun and I'm reading about, you know, some thriller or something fast paced, I like a Kindle because that's usually bedtime reading. Yeah. But for me, if I was to listen to an audiobook, and I have done various trials with Audible, I get distracted because you can do something else at the same time. So I find it harder to digest the information. But just because that's how I like to read or not read doesn't mean that's the same for everyone. And I think particularly when you've got a podcast and people are finding you through the podcast, they probably do want to listen to the audiobook version. But it's really cool to hear the trends there. It's definitely giving me even more food for thought around this split.
Yeah, and I part of it as well is because I'm the opposite. I love audiobooks, so therefore I probably perhaps with Take Your Shot didn't pay quite so much attention to the quality of the paperback, if that makes sense. So whatever medium you put out, you've got to make sure that it is good quality. And I kind of understand it. There's little things that are going to stop people in their tracks, like the 2 F-bombs that I dropped in Take Your Shot. I had a couple of people who messaged me and said I couldn't read anymore because we don't like swearing. Or I had somebody who picked up on a couple of typos, and they got so focused on the typos that they couldn't carry on sort of reading. So the quality is.
I can relate to that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would annoy me as a reader. So that's so useful though to have that feedback for sure. So one of the key things that I wanted to get you on to chat about was actually how you got so many flipping reviews for your books, because over like 1,200 reviews, I think you've got 850 alone for Take Your Shot. That is a lot of reviews. You know, I've got 2 books out already, and I think my first book's maybe got around 50 and the second one less. And I would love to hear your thoughts around how the heck you got that number so high, and give me some tips so that I can learn from you.
So there's 2 strategies at play actually, which I use. So a short-term launch strategy and then a longer-term strategy, just to kind of, I suppose, elongate, you know, once you've kind of had that initial sort of launch, you want to keep it up there for as long as you possibly can do. So the launch process is complicated. So I'll try and sort of give you the highlight reel, and then, you know, it's something that we could always go into more detail another time perhaps. So my launch strategy, what I did with both books, I got 200 copies of it printed off before launch day. So before it actually came out, physical copies. And then look, we both work with Dan Priestley. I built a wait list, but I didn't know it was a wait list in the way that Dan explained it back then when I launched the first one. But so I got 200 people signed up to a wait list, and I said, listen, I'll send you a proof copy of the book ahead of the launch, which you get to read before anybody else gets to read it. And all I ask is 2 things. And what I did is I put a letter in with it as well when I posted it out to people, nice. Which had like these various steps in it. So I said 2 things. I said, 1, make sure on launch day, when you get the text message come through, can you just make sure you go and buy the Kindle so that we can give it a bump up the Amazon charts? And secondly, when you get the second text message from me a week or so later, can you drop a review? So you know what that does? That creates something called a verified purchase review in Amazon, which is quite good for, it kind of basically says it was a legit purchase. Somebody's waited a few days. They obviously buy stuff on Amazon. So therefore we think their review is, you know, it's okay. So that was what I did. And I think there's a critical bit in there, which I kind of sort of said, but didn't really say, but text messages was so important in both of my launches, because people like email is just, it's the natural way that people go to kind of send out mass marketing these days. But unfortunately, like open rates you're never going to get 100% open rate. But one of the things I noticed with SMS marketing is you get like a 99.6% open rate and a 60 something % click-through rate, because it's on somebody's mobile phone, right? So the 200 people, I got name, email address, physical address, and most importantly, mobile number. And then I sent out 3 messages. So one the day before the launch saying, hey, just remember it's launch day tomorrow. Don't forget to help. On launch day, go and buy the Kindle. Then a few days later, here's the link, the short link to go and leave a review. So I think what that meant was I got to number 1 very quickly on Amazon in the categories. Online Business Startup ended up being number 1 in the small business and entrepreneurship category, I think for 3.5 years. Which is unheard of. Like it flip-flopped around with Dan's books for a while, and that really annoyed him, which I loved. It was either me or him at number 1 for quite a long period of time. It was fantastic.
Did you make good money on that one then?
Oh, really good money. I think probably I calculated it in the first 3 years, I sold something like 18,500 copies. I did over 100K's worth of royalties. So I made a really decent income off the royalties from that book.
Was that one of the ones you self-published?
No, that was the one that was hybrid published. So that kind of
unlucky.
Came a little bit before you. Well, yeah. But also, it was about generating new business as well. So I was getting clients from it. It was a great marketing asset. So I applied a similar sort of principle with Take Your Shot. But with Take Your Shot now, because I own all of the rights to it and the printing costs are lower, it was a thinner book. So believe it or not, postage is also cheaper. So commercially, I can send more out. I diverted all of my marketing funds into just promoting the book. And my strategy is literally to give away 2,000 to 3,000 copies a year, whether it's sponsoring an event. So I'm speaking at Tube Fest where there's going to be 250 people there. So they get me and 5 boxes of books from Amazon with 250 books in it. And then here's the thing. So every book that I send out, and people listening won't be able to see this, but I send this little postcard and I tuck it into where the praise section is in the book. For those listening, It's got thank you written on it and a picture of my ugly mug. And then on the back, a little QR code with some bonuses. So what I'm doing is I'm just inviting them into my world. So here's a book with loads of value. I normally collect people's name, email address, telephone number when they request the copy. Little automation sequence in my email app, which a month after they've requested the book, they get a nudge. Hey, could you go and leave an Amazon review? And then plus on the back here, I get a second bite of the cherry. So they scan the QR code and then they get a load of free resources attached to the book. And again, they'll get a prompt. If they scan this, put the details in, they'll get another prompt. Hey, did you remember to leave a review on the book? And it's all automated.
Wow. So a few ideas there. I mean, God, that's just so many reviews. But I guess you've got a few different opportunities to approach them and ask them for that review and make it as easy as possible. I really like the idea of texting people. And I've been thinking a lot around my book launch lately and what I'm going to do at that. And I'm wondering now whether I actually send them the book in advance almost, maybe with the invitation, and then they do something similar to you around, but please buy the Kindle version and here's the all that sort of thing, because we would have all their details.
You can also make it slightly transactional as well. So I don't do it so much now because in part it's because of demand and my capacity, because my business is just me. I've got some associate coaches, but I've chosen to keep my business small and sort of agile. I've got a lot of responsibilities. I have a young family who I want to spend time with, and managing a team just is another responsibility. So, But one of the things which I do is I incentivize the review, which I know goes against Amazon's T's and C's, but I obviously don't pay for it. But I say, look, if you leave a review, you get an invitation to come and potentially have a coaching session with me or come to one of my events. So it's kind of a bit of a quid pro quo. It's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket to come and have a bit of free coaching, basically. Cool. Which I think skirts on the edges of like incentivizing reviews and Amazon's terms and conditions. You've got to be really careful with that. And I've tried to come up with something that's more kind of linked to the business than it is necessarily about getting a review. But I feel you need to have these mechanisms in place to get people to want to take action. Sure. And I'd probably say that would be responsible for maybe about a quarter of the reviews that I've collected over the years, of probably just people who are like, I read the book, enjoyed it, left you a review because it tells me to at the back of the book. And then now here I am booking a coaching session with you.
Yes, it tells you to at the back of the book. That's what I need to add into my next one. I need to remember that. I haven't got that. So that's a quick win right there. So obviously you have hundreds or thousands of reviews, which means that you have a broad range of reviews and ratings within that. How does it feel to see 1-star reviews? Because you're going to have those with so many. That's going to be the same for anybody, and I'm sure no reflection on your content. But how did it feel getting that first 1-star review?
It was like the same as the first time the copy critique came back for the book with all the red marks in it. That was like dagger to the heart. I took it so personally, that first 1-star review that came in. And then I've got a great life coach who is very brutally honest with me about stuff. And he was like, come on, Rob, just get over yourself. Like, take it as feedback, make the book better. There's obviously something which they found in there, just own it. And that, honestly, I actually kind of quite now enjoy 1-star reviews when they come through. Well, because quite often, like, people are very welcome to their opinion. I've bought products that have ended up being rubbish that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but to everybody else, they're great, you know? So you have to take that feedback on the chin. And I do, if it's genuine, if I look at it and I'm like, actually, what they've said there, I could use that to make the book better, I'll take it. And I always reply to, nobody's ever come back to me and taken me up on this, but I always, well, you can't do it anymore, which is a bit annoying. You used to be able to reply to negative reviews, but you can't actually do that. But if I can figure out who it is, a bit of detective work, I'll email them or I'll message them.
And you'll send someone to their house.
Yeah, have them killed. No, I'll write to them and say, look, honestly, thank you. And I've left a few people voice notes with this. I've just said, look, honestly, thank you so much for your review. I know it's a 1-star, but it's really helpful for me to get this kind of feedback. And honestly, if you felt in any way that it was a waste of your money or time, I said, I'll pay for it. You just let me know what you need or want, you know, and I'll refund the money for the book. Or if you feel like it was a waste of your time, I'll pay for whatever you feel your time is worth. Nobody's responded yet. So it'll be interesting. Now I've said this.
They're probably mortified that you've called them out for their 1-star review.
I think people just forget. They forget, don't they, that they're dealing with people. Like it's so easy to do in the online space.
Keyboard warrior thing.
Yeah,
no, I get it. However, with someone that's got so many reviews as you have, I actually see it as being a positive in a weird kind of way. Like if I had 1,200 book reviews and none of them were sort of 1 or 2 stars, then I think that almost looks like you've gamed the system in a different way, because, you know, even the most popular books that are always in the top 10 on Amazon, in the biggest categories, in the overall category, they will have a mix of reviews, because not everyone likes everything. It's like when we go and see a film or we read any book, not everyone likes the same kind of thing. So I actually think it almost makes it more authentic. So, you know, when I get my first 1-star review, I'm sure it'll come at some point. That's how I think I'm going to have to tell myself, because I think there is some truth in that. And that's just the way things are. And if you want to get that many reviews, you're going to get some pretty crappy ones within that. That's luck of the draw. And as long as it's not, you know, the dominant score, then you're all right.
Yeah, I think if you're getting majority 1-star and 2-star reviews, probably you want to rethink the content. There could be something in that. But as well, there's like different platforms as well. So for example, like Goodreads. So on average on Amazon, I think Take Your Shot is 4.6 stars or something. So generally it's pretty good. On Goodreads, I think it's like 4.2. So I think there's more discerning people on Goodreads and some of the other platforms as well. So, and I haven't purposefully set out actually to go and get Goodreads reviews. I think it's just by virtue of the fact that I've sold and given away so many books. That sounded like I had a bit of an ego then. I didn't want it to come across like that. But because I've sold the volume of books, there's enough genuine reviews, I would say, on Goodreads that you can get another different picture of the books on the different platforms too. And even Audible, because I had quite a lot of fun when I was recording Take Your Shot, because it's told as a story, so there's different characters in it. And I voiced all of the different characters. So there's some comments on there, which is quite amusing, where people are like, oh, the voice you did for David the coach was quite amusing. Or like, there's like a protagonist in there called Richard, or he's called Dick in the books, you know, just as a bit of to kind of paint a picture. And he is that, he's exactly that. And people just found it quite amusing that it was me doing those different voices. So it's quite fun.
That is so funny. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, that has been a super, super useful chat. I'm going to go back and listen to this episode myself and make some notes around some quick wins of things that I can do for my next book. So thanks so much, because there's some brilliant gems within that. If anyone's listening and they want to connect with you, they've heard about all the cool stuff that you're up to, where's the best place for them to find you?
Well, I think it goes without saying, Sophie, that if somebody would like a free signed copy of Take Your Shot, they can go to fearless.biz/TYS. And also, I love to connect with people on LinkedIn as well. So if you've got questions, if you want to reach out to me, just connect on LinkedIn. I'll always answer your messages, and any questions about sort of launching books, getting reviews, and business as well. Obviously, people can ask those there.
Perfect. We'll put links to both your LinkedIn profile and also the link to Snare a Book in the show notes. So making it super easy for everyone. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you for listening. If you're serious about growing your profile, take our free profile assessment quiz to see where you're at right now and get hints and tips on how to improve your score. You'll find the link to the quiz in the show notes. If you've enjoyed the episode, it would be mint if you'd subscribe, like, and leave a review. See you next Monday.
This podcast is sponsored by Moja. Moja now have a publishing division, so if you're thinking about releasing your book and want it to look professional, contact us at hello@thisismoja.com.